Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all here. I'm going to start with a quick straw poll. Could those of you who know what ARM do raise your hand? Okay, not bad. Okay, I know I'm talking to a tech audience. I won't spend too long talking about this, but just wanted to give you a brief overview for those that don't. We're really responsible for the underlying IP that goes into processors that are within all of the smart devices we use today, and we're perhaps most famous for the low-power processor cores that we developed that go into all of our smartphones today. A typical applications processor in one of these devices will have 8 to 10 of our main CPU cores in there, as well as a whole range of other technology. So to Alexandra's discussion, we're right at the bottom of that value chain, providing the underlying IP into this technology space. But I'd like to talk a little bit about how our partners take that technology and what they do with it, and also how that impacts the growth of IoT and what we're doing to support that. And to give you a bit of context, in the last 25 years since the company was founded, our partners in the ecosystem, including companies like Huawei, have actually shipped 75 billion microprocessor platforms based on our IP, so already a good starting point. Some of you may also have heard that recently ARM was acquired. So we're now owned by a company called SoftBank, a Japanese company, and we now have a really inspirational CEO who is really driven by IoT, and I'm going to share with you a little bit about his thinking and how that's driving ARM's development in the future. So Masayoshi Son is the CEO of SoftBank, and he has made some pretty strong and bold statements about IoT. He likens IoT to the Cambrian explosion, which was a period in Earth's history where evolution really accelerated, and we saw a huge diversity of life emerge on the planet. He believes, we heard numbers of billions, he believes we're going to get to a trillion deployed IoT devices over the next 10 years or so, possibly a little more than that, but in that range. So we've got to go from ARM's perspective of maybe 7 billion devices a year in the mobile industry to a much, much larger number emerging in the IoT space. And it means you have to think on a completely different scale about the challenges that introduces. So, with 1 trillion devices out there, that could be delivering us around 2.3 zettabytes of data per month into our IoT systems. And Masa really believes that if we work together on this, we can use that sensing data to enable us to know about everything that's going on the planet in quite a lot of detail. And that sensing data feeds into a platform where you can combine that data, that base data, with machine learning and advances in artificial intelligence to really accelerate the ability to build really exciting and interesting services that bring real tangible value to address some of mankind's real challenges. So we can really solve these global challenges that face us. So it's got potential to change humanity as a whole. I don't want to understate the potential that IoT has. It moves far beyond some of the early steps we're seeing here in smart home, all the way through to real key areas about providing food for a growing planet, addressing our energy needs, and really helping with medicine and making that accessible to everyone on the planet. So it has some real world-changing potential. So you start from the grand vision, but then you've got to fold it back to, okay, what does that mean for the ARM partners today? What are the areas that they're operating in? And as we do that, you come back to some really key central vertical segments where we're seeing IoT deployed today. And on that path to 1 trillion, we've got to go there in some smaller early steps. So it's looking like this year there's going to be around 6.4 billion connected things deployed. And you can see that that's grown about 30% year on year. And that's figures from Gartner that you can see up here. And some early key verticals, smart home, as I mentioned, but also smart city emerging and more industrial and enterprise use cases growing quite rapidly. But to get this right, to get it to scale to 1 trillion, we've really got to build on some fundamental building blocks that set the foundations correctly for this. And we've heard a lot about security in recent times. And I have to say, it's not particularly glamorous. A colleague of mine said to me, getting this right and working on this, it's a bit like being the world Tiddlywinks champion. You're really good at it, but really nobody's going to watch. And that can be what it is like to be at Arm. We're working on that embedded technology to get this right. It's not particularly big, it's not particularly glamorous, but it's what we need to get done for everybody's business to be successful. And the security is not something in IoT that we can bolt on. When Alexandra mentioned the sort of emergence of technology, in the PC world, we all had this sort of isolated hardware platform to which you could retrofit or bolt on security with antivirus software. But the world's changed as we look at IoT. The attack planes that are available to malicious actors in IoT are much broader. With so many people playing in this space, with such a range of technology platforms, it really does open up the attack surface for people who want to enter into the space with perhaps less noble intentions. And the potential impact is really huge, even down to the small devices. Our CTO talking earlier this year was explaining about what could be done with smart lighting, which we think might be a quite straightforward thing. All it's doing is switching on and off lights. But if you could turn on or off the whole of California simultaneously, you could destroy an entire country's infrastructure. So we shouldn't underestimate the importance of security in even the simplest of things. We're not new to this area at Arm. Security in the platforms that we all have in our pockets today, these smartphone platforms, we somewhat take for granted, but Arm enables the security in there that allows you to undertake mobile banking on your smartphone securely using a technology called TrustZone. Very few people have heard of it. You really don't need to know about it. But what it does is it allows developers to develop apps on the operating systems in our smartphones and know that the secure information is stored and protected and not available to malicious actors also developing within that ecosystem. So it's been successful in mobile, and we made recently a big announcement as Arm, a big announcement for us with our partners, that we're supporting those silicon partners to bring that TrustZone technology down into the IoT space. So in doing that, we launched our biggest platform of IP that we've ever launched, which was targeted specifically for the IoT. So the first thing we did was introduce new embedded processor cores, our Cortex-M cores, that embed TrustZone technology within them. We added to that crypto accelerators, which bring in the cryptography that you need to handle it at very low power in an embedded system. We then brought in a whole load of supporting interconnect and other IP that allows you to build a chip but maintain that security that we've embedded in the processor core. Onto that, we've now started to offer connectivity IP as IP to drop into these systems. So our silicon partners can now benefit from radio, which they can just drop into their designs such that connectivity will be in every one of these embedded devices going forward. And we've started with the standards of Bluetooth Low Energy and 802.15.4, which bring you Zigbee and Thread and other capabilities in that area. And then on top of that, as you can imagine, a lot of software needs to exist. And this is really bringing in all of the security management and stack software and standardizing that to ensure that you can get the most out of the silicon platforms that our partners build. And finally, we've brought out a cloud service. Now, this is not something that people would normally associate with Arm, but it's a critical factor or ingredient in ensuring that this security is available from the platform all the way to cloud so that people can build innovative services but know that that security is there. And I'll tell you a little more about that. So actually, this feeds into the comment around key concerns for enterprise developers who are using IoT. as they mentioned in the Ovum survey, they're really concerned about security. And managing those devices securely and understanding which devices can be authenticated and access your services is probably the greatest concern we see when talking to enterprise developers in the IoT space. And to understand why, you just have to look at the full life cycle of a device. Really, this stuff is a little different to what we expect as developers in, say, the mobile space. In this case, the hardware life cycle is impacting the service and the software, and they're impacting each other. You have to have the ingredients together in order to create a working solution that delivers those consumer benefits that people really want to see. Things are being put in the field remotely. They may not get serviced for a long time. You've got to put them in places that are tricky to access. The battery life needs to be very significant. And there's multiple players in that supply chain for the device. So the silicon provider through to the end product is passing through a whole range of users before it's even deployed in an enterprise service. And it's possible that they may want to connect that device not just to one vertical service, but to multiple services. So you have this very complex supply chain through which that security needs to be maintained. So to help support our partners in this space, we've released an offering called Embed Cloud. And this is really about managing a trusted relationship between the devices and the cloud services. It isn't intended to provide those services in the cloud. It allows anyone to build any services on top of that platform. This is about provisioning the device, it's about updating the device, and connecting with a level of trust that you can know that you have a secure relationship with that end device. Whichever silicon provider has created it for you, whichever OEM has built the product, you can have that trusted relationship with the device. So putting this into context from an OEM or from an enterprise space, actually Embed Cloud really sits as an interface to devices from the cloud side. So we're not in the world of data storage and analytics and rules and this kind of thing. We're simply giving you a set of ingredients that allow you to manage the provisioning, the connectivity, and the updating of these devices wherever they're used in the field. And more than that, we're having to learn and adopt what's required in the emerging world of IoT services. We're offering this as a software as a service platform. So there's no on-premise requirement. There's no need to build out your own infrastructure. This is something that you can take as a service. So it brings all of the benefits of that as well. It's modular. You can configure it to your needs, and you can run it directly from a web browser. You don't need any infrastructure set up to handle it. And you only pay for what you need to use. That's the way the system works. But it is a developer-first focus. And so in coordination with that, we have a program that helps developers who are building the device side of the platform as well. And that we call Embed OS. That's an operating system with a cloud compile and build ecosystem, which is set up to enable the developer to make device-side configuration and usage of this service and get it right as simply as possible. And the aim is to really increase developer productivity so they don't have to worry about cryptography and the various TLS stacks and other ingredients they need for a secure device. There's over 200,000 registered developers using Embed OS today, and that leads to about 1 million monthly builds at the moment on our cloud service. So it's a emerging but fast-growing ecosystem of device development. So I guess as I sort of come to a close on this, the real thing here is it's about unlocking that potential. We really do believe in the trillion device story. We believe that as a community, as an ARM partnership, we can enable people to get there. But we know that we also have to do the hard work on the building blocks and create something that develops a really strong level of trust in the devices that we're going to be using in these services in the future. And that's where we see our role. I'll finish with one thing. I don't know how many people have seen one of these. Can I just have a show of hands? Does anyone know what a microbit is? Anyone seen a microbit? Okay, relatively limited. Okay, maybe not made it to the global stage yet. Microbit is a project that ARM is involved in with the BBC. We originally were involved in the BBC Micro. The Microbit is 25 years on, looking at that again and bringing programming to school children again and making it very accessible. And it adopts a lot of the actual tools and framework from Mbed OS to enable it. But it's a small little board with an embedded programming environment that children can use to learn about programming, and it has Bluetooth Low Energy connectivity, and it can collect to the sort of services that you might imagine and want them to learn about. So this is really putting embedded platforms, embedded programming in the hands of school children. So 1 million of these were given out free in the UK to every school child of age 12. And the program is now going global. It's been set up as a new foundation, is rolling out more broadly. And if you've not seen it, it's very cheap. If you've got kids, it's a great way for them to have a first experience of embedded programming and a really exciting thing to be involved in. So I'd encourage you to have a look. Thank you very much.